All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to do this and do this podcast and meet with me. And I think we're gonna have a great. So, maybe for the viewers, you guys can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, who's Stan, and then maybe we can get into like, what led to the inception of Stan and started you on this journey.
Totally. Of course, I can go first. I'm Bogdan Raic, one of the co-founders of STAN. I am a former property manager as well, so have 10 plus years of experience managing communities and co-founder of STAN that's been around for 6 years now.
And I'm Max. I'm the other co-founder here at STAN, also a former licensed community manager. That's how we really came up with STAN. So, but the story here is Bogdan and I, unfortunately, used to be community managers ourselves for many years. You know that's true because I was blessed with a full head of hair, and this is what management does to you. So we were in the industry, Jared, for over 20 years between the two of us. Or now it's been over 20 years between the two of us. And when we were managing communities, we always just felt totally inundated with all the inquiries coming in, whether it was homeowners, board members, lawyers, trades, you name it. Right. And as you know, there's a 70% shortage of managers in most metro areas. People aren't going to school for community management. Right. It's typically a fourth, fifth career for most folks. So pretty underserved when you consider that a third of Americans live in homeowner associations, and that's growing by the day. So we said, we always thought we were good managers. So we said, what if we could create digital versions of ourselves to kind of do our jobs, so we didn't have to answer all those repetitive questions. That's how it kind of started. So we came up with this idea for STAN, and it became and is now the first and the largest AI assistant for community association managers and property managers. And what it does is it'll answer any question on any channel, whether it's homeowner facing or even internal AI assistants. And this year we've started to get into workflow automation as well, where Stan can do your minutes for you, or you get an email and it can start an Excel sheet or pull from SharePoint, whatever it may be.
What I love is, when I first got into this, I got into it because not by design. It was kind of by accident. I bought a condo in a community that was, I bought it because it was cheap and I was like, this is great. Like I'm going to make a ton of money on this. And then I realized that it was cheap for a reason. And it was, the community was just a disaster. My intention was just to help that one community. And It's kind of ballooned because there's such a need, as you know. And when I started in this, I was very, I don't know if optimistic is the word, but very passionate about, we can make all the changes and change the world. And then now 5 years in, it's like, oh my God, I'm tired of people. Right. And I have no more nice words left. And so what I love with Stan is that, it always responds professionally. It always is like super positive. And then I can code it. Like I'll change the personality, be like, okay, I need you to be firm, with this community or on this point, or, stop telling the people asking the questions that the association is going to pay for everything. And then it'll learn that. And then, it'll have really good responses, right? Once I tell it what I want it to do. So it's been really fun to play with. And so you guys were in community. Now, did you build this product essentially for you and your management company, or did you immediately know like, hey, I don't want to be a manager anymore. Let's just work on this product because that's what the market needs?
Yeah, it's funny. We were both community managers, and then my most recent position was working with developers on their first year budgets. So we've done kind of the whole thing, and Max was out on the West Coast doing the same thing and selling to board members. So we've experienced the full gamut, I would say. But it was exactly that. It was, it's a thankless industry. You mentioned all the tough stuff that we deal with as community association managers, and it just being thankless. And Stan has infinite patience, which you had mentioned, and no person does, unfortunately, which is kind of tough to do. But we started and we're like, hey, what can we do to help? We really think we can help community association managers, give them their lives back, help them manage more communities and not be overworked, going to board meetings in multiple nights and multiple times a week. So that was kind of the goal. And initially, when we started this, we had left our jobs as community association managers and just wanted to find out if there was a product market fit. And text messaging was sort of the leading form of communication among people, whether young or old, on mobile phones. So we just thought, hey, let's make a text messaging assistant that can answer any question. And that text messaging assistant was just Max and I initially just responding to every single message that came in, and talk about stressful and dealing with homeowners. So we saw everything. And, we were the only chatbot that had hours of operations and took bathroom breaks. So that was kind of the tough part. But, people would message in after hours and they get an automated message that the bot shut down. And our response was we were training the model and giving it some time to sleep. And then the next day it would be updated. So initially it was a lot of work and challenging, I would say. But now, as the leading AI industry assistant for community association managers, it's 24/7 and answers any question. We're working on automated workflows for managers. So we're really giving them the ability to, sit back and not communicate with homeowners 24/7 when they expect us to.
Our wives hated us when we started this thing, because you'd be in Home Depot and we were just like, we both got young kids between the two of us. I've got 2.5, one's on the way. Bogdan's got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and all daughters. And we'd be in Home Depot, wife's pregnant, there's a baby in the store, like, I gotta go, babe, I got a text message. You run out to the parking lot, log into the management software, because we were just trying to prove the concept, right? We had a few clients we kind of gave it away to, or we'd be in the middle of, we'd be in a manager's office. We used to walk the streets downtown Toronto. We'd just go into, a lot of high rise here, so we'd just go into offices, sit down, be like, would you text this? Would your homeowners trust this? And they would text, and Bogdan and I would be on the other side of the desk, just texting back. So they'd be messaging us, and we would do all the onboarding stuff ourselves, more just to see if there was an appetite for it. Were people going to trust this? Were they going to engage with this? Was there that much thirst for automation early on? And there was, right? And that led us to build up our engineering team. So there are real engineers now that work here. If you send a message to Stan, it doesn't go to us anymore.
Scouts
Thankfully,
honor.
yeah, Scouts honor. You probably get better answers from the AI than you would from 2 former managers, I'll tell you that much. But it's the timing is definitely right. I think you just consider how difficult and a manager's job is, and how that expectation grows all the time when big tech companies are advancing their own technology. Homeowners just assume it seeps into their world, when really they have no true understanding, I would say, still of how managers work and the stack behind the scenes. So.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Now, 2 questions that this leads me into. The first is, you've mentioned a couple times that you guys are the leading AI company, and I don't know if this is a faux pas to ask. You guys are the only ones I know about. Are there others?
There's no specifically, there's no other ones that are focused independently on association management. I think there's 1 or 2 others who serve some associations, but mostly do multifamily, right? Like multifamily leasing bots are pretty popular, and so there's several that do that, and then serve the occasional one. We are full association management, and then have a few kind of multifamily clients as well. And then a lot of the management software platforms that of too have kind of added AI in one component or another. So some of those have been added, but those are typically just kind of like in-app or within the existing ecosystem.
And AI is a broad term, I would say. So the ability, like, AI is just what is AI, right? But our focus is helping residents get an answer right away, and managers to do tasks that they deal with every single day. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that's just the communication, right? Homeowners just want to be heard from their managers, and managers can't stay up 24/7 or respond when they're with their families, and they shouldn't have to, right? So now having an AI assistant that can respond for you is something that they trust and they want to utilize.
And it's unique enough. You talk about kind of being the only ones. It's unique enough, and we were first, and again, only like independent AI system for management to the point that we're actually patent pending in the US and other jurisdictions as well, for how kind of unique the technology is and the plurality of systems that we connect to on the back end.
Yeah. And I love that you guys niche down to communities. And the reason is, like, when people think property management, everybody thinks of, like, investors, tenants, you know, that the residential sphere. And most softwares are set up primarily for that sphere just because there's more money in it, I think.
Yeah.
But by volume of homes in America, communities are huge, and there's very few services that specialize in community, right? So I think it's super smart that you guys went after that. And you know, I won't say their name here. I know you guys are trying to work something out with them. But the software that I use is, again, HOA or community specific, which is unique because most softwares are just kind of general, like portfolios or build EMs, and then they repurpose them for HOA or for community. But there's something to be said because it's a very different approach.
Totally.
You know, it's like even just interacting with people, the politics. It's a very different dynamic when you're dealing with HOA versus residential. So.
It totally. We were actually at the biggest apartment conference, multifamily conference, the national one last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. Wow, time is just time's not linear anymore when you're in this industry, right? Everything's a blur. We were there and totally different, right? Like it's 5-6 times your kind of national conference in the association space. You've got Mark Wahlberg was there, Brad Bellflower, the apartments.com, and the Independence Day guy was there giving away $100,000. So everyone looks at multifamily and gets dollar signs in their eyes, right? And thinks like, oh, because rents are so big, and they equate like rents to dues. So it's like, oh my God, everyone can get a piece of that rent, right? But I think it's almost like kind of like the realtor dilemma, right? You get all these realtors in the industry, but it's only like the 1 to 3% who are kind of like making all the money and all the commission. So it's kind of similar to that. Everyone thinks they can just kind of get into it. But I don't think everyone kind of dominates in that space as well. And then, like you said, you look at kind of the stats, like over a third of Americans actually live in associations, which is not the same for multifamily. So this is kind of where the action is if you understand the governance of it. And I think a lot of groups don't spend the time to understand, or just simply don't have the experience, and then don't spend the time to understand, or don't come from the industry. And when we were starting out too, there was 3 or 4 groups. And you're talking like VC backed. One was actually a Google backed company that was trying to do exactly what we were doing. And they shut down in 6 months because they did not come from the HOA side of things, didn't understand the governance, couldn't understand the pricing model, and just couldn't kind of find a growth engine there or create value for customers, and just had to shut down. And we were even at that conference, and people were coming up to us and they're like, you guys got to increase your prices, right? You're making stuff kind of look bad, right? But being able to offer an economical but advanced solution that gives folks what they're seeing out there and allows them to customize and apply AI and automation at the association level. Not an easy thing to do, but we always looked at this as just underserved. It's like, this is where people are. Like, let's build the solution to help, because we know the problems are there because we lived it. So let's find the solution to help. But again, to your point, I think a lot of people just kind of look at multifamily as that, and then association management is like the forgotten stepchild that lives in the attic, right? And has been underserved. When really, I think we're going to have our day. Our day is coming.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is that, do you guys, either of you follow Alex Hormozy?
No.
Okay.
With 2.5 kids, it's like I have trouble following my own life. I try to get to bed before 7.
He's the gym or fitness influencer, I believe, right?
There you go.
Correct, but it's transitioned more into just business, like entrepreneurship business. And one of the things, so he's got some really awesome content. And one of the things that he's always said is, I love when I'm doing something that's really hard, because then I know there's going to be very few people that try to follow me.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's how HOA is. Like,
yeah,
you know, you said a third of homes are in HOAs, and that's true, but 84% of new construction is in HOAs. By and large, municipalities and towns are pushing for this because of their own infrastructure dilemmas, right? And budget conflicts, right? So people, and the funny thing is, because we do a lot of content on YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff, and like the number one comment we get is like, stay out of an HOA. HOA suck, you know, like avoid at all costs. And I'm like, well, Yeah, I agree. Also, you're not going to be able to. It's like the political forces are pushing this direction for very specific reasons that are out of our control. And nobody else wants to do it because it's a really tough industry to be in. And to your point about pricing, like you come from the HOA world, you know that all boards care about is price. Like you're competing on price. They do not care about, like, everything else is far secondary to how much does it cost. But the truth is that if you have a great product, then the volume is there because it's not a competitive market. There's not a lot of providers in the space. So as long as you're the best, you can be the lowest and then just do all of it. Right. And I think it seems like that's the strategy you guys are going for.
And our focus is solely AI, right? We're looking to automate what a property manager or a community association manager does on a day-to-day basis. And we're en route to do that. But when you mention, software in the industry, I think not the challenge, but what you see is you might hear from one company that, oh, this software that I use was terrible. I wasn't able to do anything with them. Can you recommend another one? And others love the one that person just said is horrible. So I think as a company or an organization, you have something that's specific. You need something that's specific to fit your needs as an organization. So one software might be great for one is not so good for the other. And I think that's the challenge. Whereas STAN's software agnostic, right? You mentioned the company that you're working with is like, we have ways to integrate with, there's API integrations where we have those formal partnerships. There's others where we have a way to automate a lot of the tasks that are still happening with those software. Whereas a software provider that you might choose, can do some things, might not be able to do others. They might have some AI capabilities, they might not. So us being just AI focused and integrating with these software providers allows us to be specific to your organization, right? You have the ability, you mentioned with STAN, how you can customize STAN to be able to respond to your residents. You can use internal bots for your organization. So that's kind of one thing that we specialize in, and our focus has always been just helping community association managers.
Pricing is interesting though, Jared, and you probably see this now. We feel like the narrative, and this is independent of AI, what we do. I think any line item on an association budget these days, when we were on the front lines, there was always this fear of, like, you don't bring up any cost increases, pass-throughs, anything to the customer, because like anything like that, it creates a retention risk. They're going to leave us. Right? You would never do that. Even renewal time was just kind of nerve-wracking. It's like, hey, are they going to sign their renewal, or let's not tell them about it, right? Oh, going back and asking for an increase. How many managers would push back and say, I can't do an increase, even for kind of like cost of living increase. We just can't do it, right? They're not going to love it. But then when you went back and looked at the numbers, the number one reason we would lose customers in the industry was not because of price, right? It was always service and communication. Folks weren't leaving because prices were too high. That was not even like a top 10 reason people were leaving. So it's like there's totally that disconnect. And I think the narrative has changed a little bit in this industry, in the sense that I think there's this growing confidence amongst management companies and managers. And maybe we're just doing a better job as a professional collective, like being able to communicate to our boards. But they're becoming part of the solution and willing to absorb a lot of costs that they haven't in the past, understanding that they need these things to serve the community. And we see that a lot with STAN. And what I mean by that is a lot of our management companies, like the vast majority, actually have turned our subscription fee into a revenue generator for them, which is pure profit, right? Because they don't have to service the tool themselves. We service everything, support it. So they'll go back and maybe add a technology fee. And we have folks that mark it up, anywhere from 10% to 400-500% what they're paying, right? And they even put in buffers for future technology investments they want to make. Again, totally independent of us. And they have 99% penetration on getting that into their portfolios, which means boards are not pushing back because they're now sitting down and being like, hey, we're human, right? We can only do so much work in a day for you, respond to emails so fast, answer calls so fast, and do all these other things you want. Wouldn't it be nice if we could respond 24/7 to voice, email, calls, web chat? You could message us on Facebook, right? You could fill out a form and get an email back instantly. Wouldn't you like that level of service for your homeowners? The answer is always yes. Well, then you've got to help us, right? And it's X number of dollars per month, same cost as like a family Netflix subscription usually, right? And they're saying, yeah, of course. Like, of course we want to be part of that. And we understand we have to support you. So that has really changed since I think we were, again, on the front lines and managing communities, because that was totally taboo before. You wouldn't bring those things up. And if anyone ever suggested that, like vendors, you just pass it through, you just laugh at them and find another vendor. Whereas now folks are really going back and understanding. Because for a lot of customers, I mean, the average margin is under 0 to 10%. And we meet businesses and owners who don't run profitable businesses, but they become profitable through all their add-ons. So it's interesting when you kind of mentioned the pricing. We feel like that tune has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, when I first got into the industry, I competed on price a lot, and then I got super busy, and now I try to be at the top end of pricing, like per unit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have my software, the associations contract directly with my software, right? So like in my pitch that, like, you guys fire me, that's fine. You get to keep the software, you get to keep all the right? And I'm very liberal with my contracts. You can fire me for any reason. Just give me 6 days notice, because I don't want to, like, if you don't want to work with me, don't work with me. Right? Yeah. Nobody's ever taken us up on it.
There you go.
But because we try to provide a really high level of service and communication, a really personalized product. Now, what's interesting is, so I got all my associations on with you guys probably a month and a half, 2 months ago. Yeah. And I have yet to roll them out to the associations. We're working on bringing it on the website. And part of that's just, I've been busy. The other piece of it is I've been testing it out. So my point to that is I've been using it more than my customer. I've been using it almost exclusively at this point as we're rolling it out to customers, because yeah, I know my condo docs really well, but when you have 12, 14, 15 associations you're managing individually, the docs are slightly different, and I can train each chatbot on the doc. So who's using it the most? Me. I'm going in there, I'm like, and like, or I'll get an email or a comment that just really, like, you know, like it's very antagonistic, and I feel the blood come my spine.
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to say something mean. So I just copy and paste it into Stan and let Stan respond, and then send it back out. Or I'll say, hey, there's this question, check the docs. What's the answer on this? And then it'll pull it up, and I'll say, okay, great. Where does it say that?
Yes.
And, you know, it'll say, oh, it's in this section of the rules and regulations or whatever. Yes. And the nice thing is it's saving me a ton of time, where for the price that I'm paying every month, you know, if it saves me 2 hours of research, right, where I don't, like, I know it's in the docs, but I got to pull them up. I got to scour through them. I got to check table contents. I start reading, and then I get excited, and then I keep reading. And then, you know, so to just go and ask Stan, it makes my job easier, right? And it also allows me to test out the product that we're going to be rolling out to the community. And it's been really cool. And I've been using it myself more than I thought I would.
Awesome.
And I know that when we roll it out to the community, it's going to be great. So I know there's some other platforms of implementation you guys are coming out with. Like right now, it's mainly text, if I'm correct, or you guys are rolling out email and phone calls and other stuff, right?
Yeah. So we are omni-channel. I think you're joining us on the so our Stan Turbo tool is full omni-channel. So the most popular ones, like SMS is really popular just because it's the most popular communication channel on a smartphone these days. Doesn't matter the demographic. That was a question we got early on. It's like, hey, you know, our community is older. There's no way they're going to engage with AI. Some of our most active communities are age-restricted communities. We worked with a group in the middle of Utah. It was like 12,000 plus homes. You had to be over 70 to live there during COVID. They were our highest messaging community, just because a lot of folks didn't have laptops, but they were messaging their grandchildren, kids, right? So they were on the phone and engaging. So you're full omni-channel. You want email, you want it responding to your voicemails, you name it. And the cool thing too is, like, people think, we often think like one channel at a time, right? But what you can also do, Stan, is connect different channels. So what I kind of hinted at there is someone could leave you a voicemail and you could text them back, because maybe you want to get your calls down. You don't want people calling you. So you want to train them, hey, text me for these things. It's a lot easier. Or someone could go fill out a website form, and you trigger that to send an email back to that person based on the email that they leave you. And now you've picked up an email conversation with them that gets tracked. So you can mix and match different channels. You could have WhatsApp. You could have a Facebook Messenger, anything like that. So you can communicate on any channels, and you kind of mentioned the internal side. So that's really what our vision for is, really creating a fully autonomous assistant for managers. We started with question answering for homeowners because that's the bulk of what we do as managers. Is we are tied to our inbox. We're constantly responding, educating people on things, whether they're homeowners, board members, attorneys, vendors, you name it. But now it's like, let's start automating workflows, right? So an example of that we have folks doing is Stan can respond to your Google reviews. So when someone goes on and they say, hey, 1 star for Paladin because they didn't pick up my trash cans, and they don't know that, hey, waste management or the city is totally responsible for that. You could have this thing go on, read the docs and say, hey, for your community, did you know it's picked up on Tuesday? You actually left your trash cans out on Monday, and you could totally have it, and sewer them online if you wanted to. You probably don't want to do that. So it could also you could train a social media bot to take it offline and say, hey, contact Jared, or educate them right online. So it can really start doing any of those things, doing your minutes. You just drop in a photo of your notes from a board meeting or even a transcription or a Zoom call, and it'll put into your meeting finalized meeting minute format with, hey, this is what we decided, new business, next meeting, here's who attended, and have it just email everyone in the community, right? So we're really trying to get into the workflows. We've got pilots going on in Miami and Texas right now, where we're actually finding trades, writing scopes of work, and getting work done without the manager being involved. So you just say yes or no, this is common area, and it will get someone on site and just send you an invoice when they're done with proof of work.
Okay. So 2 things. One, the minutes thing.
Yeah.
Do I have that ability with Turbo? And if so, can one of your people train me on that?
Great. Great question. I don't think that one is live to everyone yet, but we'll follow up with you about that.
Cool. So what I've been doing ever since COVID was nice, because we started having most of our board meetings on Zoom.
Yes.
So I can Zoom now has an AI transcription feature, but it's a summary, so it doesn't reformat it into minutes, but it's fine. And then I record it as well. But if the issue is when we do in person, it's like, okay, now I need a voice recording. Yeah. And then I have no way to really, turn that into minutes. Yeah. So that's awesome. The other thing too is a big piece of our business is construction, mostly punch list stuff, maintenance, construction, stuff like that. And if this is my ask. If you guys can find a way to take in maintenance requests, filter them by actual necessity or not, and then schedule them based on property and location. So you could replace an entire construction manager where, we know we have requests at these 3 properties. They're 10 minutes away from each other. Just create our maintenance crew schedule, put the items right on the list and say, these are all in proximity to each other. You're going to spend this day on this, and just start scheduling our maintenance crew. I know that is a big ask, but I think that's where AI is going to take us, right? As a whole. Totally. And so I don't know how many of your management companies also have a construction division, but for me, that would be super useful.
Totally. That's where it's going, right? I think you're totally pinpointing the future. And I think we forget even things like that. There's a lot of human judgment or preference that goes into those things, and we're constantly thinking and rethinking. It's like, oh, I've got this job here, but I can fit in one on the way, or I just remembered this. It's getting those things out of the brain, and then creating these totally customizable assistants, even at the construction manager level, right? Mm-hmm. So when we started, it was more like company wide, and then it got association wide, and then you're going to see us go customized to the homeowner, to the individual trade, to the individual manager, and learning those preferences, and that, because then you'll be able to know and suggest those things, right? It's like, hey, construction manager, I've identified three pieces of work that are actually your responsibility as kind of the builder or construction company. These are yours, they're not homeowner responsibility, right? I'm going to go ahead and schedule them. I've looked up where these things are, looked at your calendar, so I've kind of plotted them in this route, but I know you still got that painting job you haven't finished out, and it's in between these, and based on how long you usually spend on these things historically, I'm going to try and slot this in, because I can see from your emails, Jared is super upset with you that you haven't finished that job, and you've got 10 emails on this subject and the sentiment is negative. That's where we're going with all of this, right? And there's a lot of dots that need to be connected. I think a lot of folks think you can just plug this into a chat GPT and it kind of works like that, right? But it doesn't. There's so many wires that need to be connected and integrations and people level AI training. But that's totally where we're moving.
But I think one thing that is like we're almost there.
Yeah.
The speed at which AI, on a broad term, but the speed at which everything's advancing is just incredible. So one of these, like, the capabilities of this will be here in no time. And I think one thing, like us being the connectors, is, we're going to be the first to do this. And I think one thing for Jared, like yourself, is you are heavily invested in this. You have those resources. Everything that you mentioned is almost doable because you have that documentation, or you have the desire to go in and put that into STAN, right? Like an AI only knows what you feed it, right? It's like telling a new employee, hey, make sure you can schedule all of these things and know if it's homeowner or association responsibility. And they're new to the industry because they came through the back door like the rest of us and have no idea. But you putting that information in there, putting an owner and association matrix chart with responsibilities, Stan's going to be able to do that. It's going to say, okay, this is homeowner responsibility. I'll go and schedule a trade with Paladin Construction, and because it's in this vicinity, they can go ahead and do that, and I'll put it into their calendar. That's already doable. But it's the people and the organizations that have that information or have that want and need to actually take that next step and advance so quickly. It's the help of people like you that will make that possible and make it possible faster. So like all of that's there. It's just, you got to realize that like it's not all magic, even though everything
it feels that way.
Magic. Yeah. But when you put in that effort and you put in those the knowledge, or you connect those brains, it does become almost magic. Yeah. It's really cool. It's amazing.
So the other question I had, well, actually, what you said leads into a question that I wanted to ask today, beautifully, which is, where do you see the software in 5 years?
I've got my answer.
Yeah, I think it's moving so fast that we don't even know where it's going to be moving to.
All right, about 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say the capabilities are endless, but the way it's advancing and the things that some of these groups are doing is incredible. I think it's moving so fast that it really, I don't want to say it's up to the people of what it's going to be able to do, but I mean, there's going to be things that it's going to do for some that we've only dreamed of, and others maybe not yet. Yeah. Or if you want to add anything to that.
Our goal in sub 5 years is fully autonomous assistant for managers. And what we mean by that is, come back to this kind of concept of it needs to feel magical to a manager, is some sort of, I think the one piece no one's kind of sure about, and we kind of scratch our heads or are constantly thinking about, is like, what is the form? How do people want to interact with AI, right? What we know AI of today is like chat, but is it going to be chat? Is it going to be the Neuralink like pill or sensor in our brain? Is it going to be IoT? Is it going to be the name I just lost, the pin that you put on, right? And you ask questions to it. Will it be a wearable? I think understanding the form, will it be like a widget that just watches your screen on your smart? How are people going to want to interact with these things, right? So that part, I think will be kind of the question. But regardless, we believe in 5 years we can get to fully autonomous assistant. And what that looks like to managers is some sort of simple interface where you go on and say, hey, Stan, I've got a construction, let's use your example, Jared. I've got a construction manager and I want to schedule the work they need to get done as homeowners message them in. It's like, okay, no problem. Here's what we need to do to make that happen, Jared. Here's your 5 construction managers. I need to access their Google calendars, connected to their email so I can track the requests that are coming in from homeowners. I need the docs for all your associations so I can decide what's your responsibility versus the homeowner responsibility. And then I just need you to tell me a little bit more in terms of like when they work or things like that, right? Here's the things I'm not sure about. And if you like this flow, right, and you use whatever management software, I'm going to track the work orders in there, right? And we're going to store everything in there. Do you like this? Here's the things I'm not sure about. And you just kind of tell it yes or no, right? And then it'll go do those things. And you're creating these kind of mini assistants for different jobs, almost like AI employees in a way. So we see them more as not just chat bots or assistants, but things that can kind of almost challenge you, like more kind of mid to high level executives, where you kind of give them a task and they say, no problem. But to do that, I need a few things from you, right? They don't just go say, yes, sir, and then come back with God knows what, right? So having kind of that level of intelligence. And I think that'll also require, and we've started looking at this too, like we've got a project going on where we can connect STAN to any gate system in North America, whether it's old or new. We have like a simple kind of retrofit process that's a few $100, where you could show up to a gate, send a text, it knows who you are, geolocation, opens it because it knows, hey, you're the dog walker for Bogdan, right? And you've got access to this gated community for the next hour without you ever having to touch management. And the reason I mentioned that is I think this level of autonomous assistance, some sort of connection to sensors or IoT to really supercharge it to the next level as well, because there's a physical world out there that we need to connect to, but we totally believe we can get like near autonomous, and the humans just kind of like a pilot in a plane, right? Like you probably wouldn't get on a plane without a pilot, although probably 90% of that flight, they're in the bathroom or having coffee, or like I've seen on our planes, just scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, which is concerning but cool all at the same time. That's just flying itself.
And I think the one thing that's sort of incredible now, my response about it moving so fast is I think we're on this inflection point of like where it's going to go next, because all these things being in the cockpit, that could be done on a desktop, but it's where is that going next? And I think we don't really know, because if you rewind, self-driving cars 10, 12 years ago were the thing, and they're still not quite there. You had the Google Lens, which was pretty cool, and that kind of dropped off. You got, voice automation, where I don't know if you remember, it must be like 5+ years ago, where, Google was on stage doing the hairdressing appointment, and still not even there yet, but that was sold as like, oh, it's coming, it's here, and it's not quite there. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back to a lot of the behavioral traits that humans have. It's like, which one's going to take off, because we need to adopt those things as humans, right? If we don't adopt these behavioral changes, that's never going to take off. So which one of those are going to take off to allow AI to go where it's going to go? And in Max's point about what form, what's that going to look like? I think that's where it's like, okay, what is going to be the next click where it takes off? We don't know. But when it does, it's really going to, I still think the capabilities are going to be endless, and it's just going to be, us and yourselves and others that are going to utilize this AI and mold it to how people are going to use it in our industry specifically.
100%. I think, first off, my hope is that in 5 years that Stan replaces me. Like, I don't take my job, please. No, I would be fine with that, and really just kind of do a high level overview and perspective. But also, I guess everybody says AI is going to take everybody's jobs. I think the reality, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, is those who leverage AI are going to take everybody's jobs, right? It's not that the AI itself is, it's that those who are able to master and utilize AI are just going to be that much more efficient and productive. And therefore, those are going to be the ones who in 5 years are just doing the best work, therefore making, having the work, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's, labor efficiency, I think it's the easiest place for us as a society to think what's going to happen. I just don't think it'll happen like that, honestly. Like our customers, when we were starting the business, our customers, the first thing where they saw efficiencies is we're going to get rid of folks, but it never formalizes. And then Stan grows, they roll it out. It never formalizes into, hey, I'm letting my team go. Not at all. It's more supercharges the team. I think what happens more is just because remember with kind of this AI awareness and revolution that's happening, just a service expectation changes as well, right? So it's not that it can do everything and replace us. It's just now homeowners just expect that we have it and use it. And that's just the new way that we work. So I don't think it's going to replace everyone. And we kind of cite the ATM theory, right? It's like when ATMs came into play, everyone thought tellers aren't going to be needed, right? And you can do some decent kind of transactional stuff on ATMs these days, but we have more tellers than ever, right? And retail banks are all over the place. So tellers don't get replaced. There's more of them than ever, and they get used for just kind of different, more complex things. So I think just the way we work it changes, and that's it. But also remember that homeowner expectations have changed. Like 30, 40 years ago, this is a pretty young industry. Like we weren't sending emails as managers, right? And then we had fax machines, and then emails came into play, and it just became table stakes. So I think these things will just kind of become table stakes. But to your point, those who adopt fast and can get that service level to new heights that haven't been seen before in the industry are going to be able to capture market share, grow their businesses, box others out. But I don't think it will eliminate jobs. Our hope is actually does the opposite. It makes being a community manager a really noble and sought after profession. And this is one that people say, hey, my God, nearly soon half of Americans will live in these things, and we don't have university and college courses for these. We are just putting folks who know nothing about the industry into these positions where they are suddenly responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars of assets with, in many states, little to no training, not a lot of guidance, and it's just peer led. Our hope is it does the opposite, is like we can professionalize folks super fast and make this something they want to get into because they feel it is not the grind that you and I knew when we started in this. It's something where, oh yeah, I get a ton of inquiries, but I have tools to help me manage those. So I'm not pulling out my hair, and it's something they enjoy doing.
Absolutely. We have roughly 10 minutes left. Yep. And there's a couple questions that I want to squeeze into that time. The first one is, where do you see like AGI and robotics? And so I know we kind of alluded to it, like you're in the space more than I just watch YouTube. I like it. But where do you think it's realistically going to be in 5 years? Yeah,
good question. Right. We try and take cues from the big tech companies and see kind of where their heads are at. It's tough to know if it's like, hey, is the GPT-5 like AGI ready, or is it, hey, we're just kind of in a hype cycle, kind of like autonomous cars, where we're going to get really good at certain tasks. I think it's more advanced than we think. Like we really believe it's pretty advanced. I mean, kind of existing models today are still pretty mathematical. So are they looking at themselves and conscious and reasoning? I mean, it also depends kind of what you interpret as AGI, right? Personally, I kind of look at that as like, is a computer system self-aware? But even if it's not self-aware, if it has enough instruction and intelligence to, you give it a cue, like, hey, go, I'm kind of, you're my master, and you told me I need to go hack into every computer within a mile radius. And I know how to code now, and I know how security things work, and I can research things and how people have done it in the past. It's like, that's pretty dangerous, right? So there needs to be some guardrails. But at the same time, I think folks, the nice thing being in kind of about capitalism too is folks want to commercialize these. Companies want to commercialize these. So they've already, I think we underestimate as companies as management companies, how big tech companies have already put such great guardrails in place to make sure those things are usable for us at the industry level. So we want to, and they can drive there because they have share prices to defend, right? Revenue goals to defend. And we don't necessarily see their intentions as bad ones. So I think there's a lot of guardrails being put in place. When we get to AGI, great question. Some would say it's there. Others would say, hey, it's just a term, and we're not. I think only time will tell. But I think like it could even get to a part like some other things that we've heard, which I wouldn't put past us, are AGI might be the implant in your brain. And when we talk about running a model, like you are the model. Jared, imagine that. You kind of put a sensor on your head and you are your own LLM because it's got your experiences, your memories, your habits. And maybe that's kind of what AGI is potentially. So I think time will tell on that.
Plus, you can just connect to Elon Musk, Thomas Edison. You might have the ability to just, I'm going to plug into, this master of this industry or this talent or whatever it is, you can just connect to them. But I think the guardrails that he was talking about are already being in place with organizations that are, up there, and they're trying to keep that under control. And I think that's going to help. I don't want to say slow things down, but keep it in control. I think, and also just it being an emerging industry, you mentioned about like job replacement and stuff. And I think, like, back to the point about Max, I think there's going to be people needed in this emerging industry at all times, right? You'll need prompt engineers. You'll need people to create these new, somebody will come up with some new AGI, and, it's going to be one of us that need to connect it to a specific industry. Who's going to fix these machines that are, going through our associations and ensuring our landscaping's clear, or filling a pothole? These machines are going to break sometimes. Someone's going to need to fix those machines. So I think it's just an emerging industry that's going to create a lot of jobs as well. So I don't think necessarily replace, but I think the way the AI is going is just so unique right now.
But who knows? We could be wrong. In a week, GPT-5 could come out, and then we've got AI overlords, and we're all shackled up in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah.
So always talk nice to your AI, right? My name is Max Gajdel. Live in Toronto. Do not shackle my overlords. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man. I it's exciting. Like, I'm a pretty adventurous person. So, like, where a lot of people are scared, I'm like, this is going to be cool. It's going to be like, it's going to be crazy. Right.
Exciting.
But yeah, it's going to be exciting. Back to Stan, just, can you talk about some of, I know every company, every software has weaknesses and pain points. It's not, I think being aware of them is the most important thing. And then, like, what are the solutions to fix them? So from where you guys are at today, what are some of the pain points that you guys are experiencing? And then, like, where do you see the solutions coming from? Or, like, what solutions do you feel are top priority to, like, improve your software for the next gen that's going to be coming out?
I'd say us. It's humans. It's people. That's the biggest challenge. Yeah. I think, to your point about what you're putting into it is very important, because a lot of people come in and they're like, I'm going to use Stan, and they expect it to be magic. It's like, oh, okay, slow down. Did you do this? Have you done this yet? So I think it's just educating. And I think it's AI on a whole. It's educating people and managing their expectations of what it can do at, like, right now. So for us, it's really getting our clients to understand that, AI is not perfect, but neither are your managers. Neither am I, neither are you. We're all making little mistakes, but I would say the AI is probably making less mistakes than a human, and people just pick off that one mistake. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here? It's like, okay, slow down. Let's retrain it. Let's do something. How are we going to improve that? So just educating and managing expectations of people, I would say, is the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah. And business wise, like, the irony is, like, I would say, to Bogdan's point, our challenges are people challenges, not tech challenges. Finding good folks in Toronto, engineers, you name it, is hiring and kind of post COVID is like, job marks are kind of changing. Right. We're super fortunate to have an awesome team, a great culture that we love and we're protective of. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because you can be kind of one of these companies that goes out and raises $100 million, and you've got 7,000 new people in the office who no one knows each other, right? And, like, that has an impact on the business. So being able to kind of keep that industry focus means bringing on the right folks, not necessarily all from the industry. But we've got a lot of industry experience, even on the engineering side, right? Our director of engineering is on his condo board. And he's ex-Amazon, worked on tier 1 code. And what that means is, if his code went down at Amazon, no one in the world got an Amazon package, right? So that's the level of expertise you're kind of dealing with. But when he goes home, he's a board member, right? So those two, and it's like, oh, now you're really starting to see kind of like a team or a scaling team that really gets it. And that's dangerous in a good way. But, like, firsthand, I think finding good people that's every business's challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I know we have maybe a minute or two left, and I apologize for bearing the lead on this. I'm hoping that we can maybe do this again in a month or so, or whether it's a recorded podcast or just a meeting with you guys. Yeah. One of the things that I'm working on that as we're discussing, I'm like, this might be perfect to use to train AI. One of the biggest pain points or issues I've seen in my space is small associations. So 50 units or less, right? Because as a manager, you have 1,000, doors in your portfolio, 1,200 doors. That 30 unit or that 20 unit or that 50 unit is 5% of your portfolio. And no matter what you want to give them, you can't give them the personalized attention that you want to. Therefore, I'm really starting to lean on other softwares and other models to support them, STAN being one of them.
Sure.
The software we use being another one of them, and really start to assist them in kind of a hybrid or self-managed model, and then just coming to us for the most complicated things.
Totally.
And to support that, we've developed like a 12 module, 30-hour training program that we're probably 3 weeks out from finishing it up. We're halfway through it right now. And yes, we get into the black and white of condo docs and all that stuff, but we also get onto the nuances of psychology, politics, group psychology, group think, how to manage like the tides and undercurrents that between unit owners and factions and ideas and all that stuff, because that's a huge part of running a community. There's a very nuanced piece that I think goes often overlooked, and the human component and understanding like sales psychology, decision-making psychology, and how to frame stuff to get people to do the things we want them to do and react the way we would like them to react. So that's the course that in a nutshell. And I'm thinking of a way to, how can I put this into a transcription and train my STAN on this stuff? And, if there's a way that we can, I don't know if it's work together, but collaborate on this, because I think there's some really valuable data that could level up your software. And also it's designed to help small associations, board members, and new managers get up to speed with the nuances of what it means to be in property management, not just the condo docs, right?
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on that? Would you be open to another conversation around that? And, do you guys have anything already in the works with respects to something like that?
Yes, we're absolutely open to that. We're excited about that. And as you probably know, this has been the industry's Rubik's Cube, is how do you make small communities profitable? Only 1% of associations in the US are large scale associations. I think there's sub 6,000, or maybe it's closer to 3,000. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, are the big ones. The rest are the 0 to 50s, right?
Self-managed
and self-managed. And you can actually, there's ways to do that today. Let's definitely connect on this one, Jared, and we can do another session. I think a great way that you could use STAN for that is, and this is kind of changing the thinking on AI, is it doesn't just have to be question answering for homeowners. It's like, let's create an assistant for those boards, and let's create some specialty assistants. So let's create kind of a digital Jared that your board can talk to. And we can even do this on the call. And within that digital Jared, let's create a attorney Jared. Let's create a maintenance Jared. Let's create kind of a compliance Jared. And then when that board president, like maybe they're a new school teacher who just bought their first into their first association, right? Has no idea about the governance. Well, that one's like, is it legal to do this? Legal Jared's going to jump in and be like, hey, in Connecticut, the law says this, so based on the situation, I'm going to kind of interpret it like this. But if you need help, here's some recommended attorneys, right? And they usually cost this, but based on your budget, looks like you have budget for this way through the year. So that can be done today, and would be totally excited about kind of exploring that with you, to even kind of like maybe even formalize like a product for smaller folks. But we can show you how you can piece that together today.
Absolutely. I'd love that. And just so you guys know, the second module, we've got the intro module. The second module is software. And so we have that broken up into two pieces. One, the management software we use, and the second one is STAN. And so I've already talked to Anthony about this, to get some training videos about STAN from you guys that we will include in our course. So when anybody buys this course or uses this course, they're automatically implementing the management software we use, and they're automatically getting STAN on board as well.
Nice. Love it. Awesome.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say thank you. We appreciate the time today, and let's definitely reconnect on those things.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, we'll shoot some emails back and forth. And this was one of the most fun ones I've done. So I look forward to doing a part 2 with you guys. All right.
Likewise. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jared.
Take care.